Radio 4. It's 6:15. Now here's Gordon Clough with another edition of Round Britain Quiz.
Hello. This season of Round Britain Quiz is getting very near its halfway mark now. Today, in the first round, the resident London team of Irene Thomas and Eric Korn meets the North of England team of Dr. Patrick Nuttgens and Patrick James Fitzpatrick. Patrick James Fitzpatrick is a relative newcomer. He's been appearing in Round Britain Quiz only since 1983. And he has, and I quote, a particular interest in mathematics, medicine, theology, philosophy, history, the classics, French and Russian literature, and Greek mythology. Doesn't apparently know very much or care very much about pig-sticking or pop music. These deficiencies might be made up by Patrick Nuttgens, who's the director of the Leeds Polytechnic, who's been at it for 11 years, no less. Patrick claims to know nothing whatsoever about sport or party politics or sex, for which purpose all the questions directed to him will be on those particular subjects, but he does know a lot about art, architecture, towns and town planning, and a lot of other things. Now, how are we going to sort you two out? Patrick Nuttgens, what shall I call you?
I think it's better if you just call me Patrick or Pat, which would be the simplest thing, because that is what my students call me.
Right. Now, Patrick James Fitzpatrick.
Call me PJ.
Not to be confused with any other lemon juice of the same name.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Original song.
And with the London team, Louis Allen.
Yes, and it's all right with me, Gordon, if you call me Sir throughout.
Gov, I think, Gov.
And I have with me Irene Thomas, who is the reason why Encyclopedia Britannica is in the feminine gender, and Eric Korn, retired biochemist. I never worked out whether it was compulsory or voluntary retirement, and bookseller extraordinary, who, of course, as you know, writes the Times Lifts Up every week. I've got a question for these two. How did Mitsubishi make a medieval Arab invention soar through the air, making springtime for Hitler?
How did Mitsubishi make a medieval Arab invention soar through the air, making springtime for Hitler?
Louis Japanese streak is coming to the fore here. Mitsubishi used to make cars and aeroplanes.
They made aeroplanes, and when I was a small boy, you went around going, bang, bang, crash. Now, Japanese planes had names that people couldn't pronounce, so they were called by made-up American names, and Mitsubishi made a plane called the Zero, which might be what we're onto here, because Zero might be regarded as a medieval Arab invention, although the Arabs are said to have taken it
You mean nobody had a naught before the Arabs invented it?
No.
What did they do when they meant nothing then?
They just shook their heads or shrugged their shoulders or looked blank, I
Hard
suppose.
luck when it came to making up your pay packet.
So there's two zeros there. I'm not quite sure how to link. Springtime with Hitler was the wonderful Bad Taste.
The producer, produced by Mel Brooks, right?
Right. And people are trying to lose a lot of money in a hurry, and they back this bizarre musical called Springtime for Hitler that, of course, turns out to be an enormous success, and they don't lose the money anyway.
Who was in the film?
What's it?
Well,
Zero Mostel.
Indeed,
Yes.
Zero Mostel, yes.
And soaring through the air is buoyant, is it? Or is that something else?
It is buoyant, if you like, but it doesn't necessarily mean you soar. And I think I ought to give you, in our new counting, 6 marks for this.
Thank you, Louis. Now then, here's a question that proves, if proof were needed, that dog does eat dog. Dr. Jack Jones, a member of the Welsh team, has sent in this question for the Northern team, and what's more, he sent it in 6 parts. It's a sequential kind of question. The first is a mole-like cricketer, the second a kind of intuition. Ludwig took strength from Schiller for the third. The fourth, are you still with me? The fourth is an Elizabethan knees up on January the 6th, and you might have to look in an organ loft for the 5th. Dr. Jones says, why?
Jack Jonas, or Jonas as they would call him in Patagonia, says the first is a mole-like cricketer, the second a kind of intuition. Ludwig took strength from Schiller for the third. The fourth is an Elizabethan knees up on January the 6th, and you might have to look in an organ loft for the 5th. Why is it?
I suspect these are a collection of numbers.
Yes.
For example, PJ, Ludwig took strength from Schiller for the third. Well, must be Beethoven.
For the Ninth. This is the Ninth Symphony. This is the Hymnus Anti Freude.
Okay,
That's right.
That's right.
And the Elizabethan knees up, this must be Twelfth Night.
12th night.
Yes.
The Feast of the Epiphany.
Yes.
And if you wanted to look at an old-fashioned organ which has very, very long pipes,
Yes.
if I'm right, the 16th would
16,
be,
perhaps even 32ths. I don't know.
would be right up. It would go
Right
right up in the top, but it would be up in the organ notch, would it not?
A clergyman of my acquaintance bought a second-hand organ, and it was rather too big, so he cut the pipes in half to make it fit the church. It actually happened.
Yes.
He was the same fellow supposed to have told
so-
people after
so-
Palm
so-
Sunday the palm didn't grow on trees. That would be rather easy.
At the moment, if I read you both rightly, you're offering me Ninth Symphony,
Symphony.
fine, 12th Night,
Nice.
and you're offering me a 16th or a 32th.
The other ones must involve some sort of number.
Yes, they do.
Well, the second is a kind of intuition. If you go down from 12, 9, that would be 6.
That's it.
6
PJ.
cents.
Six cents.
Ah,
there we
6
are.
cents.
Admirable,
6 cents.
yes.
Oh,
Right,
yes,
six.
yes.
Well, no, you
More
must
like
surely.
cricketer. Well, I must confess that this is rather rather out of my depth here. In a whole more like cricketer. Well, if it's what is it? That's 6 cents. 963. Is there a man called 3?
Well, in a manner of speaking, yes, there is.
Oh,
Third.
Well,
Three.
not the first man, the second man, but the...
The third.
oh, the third man.
Yes, admirable. He feels a long way behind the
Oh,
slips.
Mole, of course.
And he is a kind of
Oh,
mole-like
I see.
person.
I was thinking of Beatrix Potter, and you were thinking of all
Yes.
wicked men.
Okay.
Oh.
3, 6, 9, 12.
12.
So 9, 6, 12 must be 15.
Yes. And I am assured, although I'm not myself an organist, that the 15th
Oh, is it 15, is it?
is an organ stop 2 octaves above open diapason. I hope it...
Diapason.
Well,
The diapason closing full on that.
right.
Some
yes, I think there may be a
As in the
literal
word thing.
here, somewhere.
How interesting.
I mean, if Jack Jones says it's the open
Perhaps this
diapason...
priest was right cutting the organ stuff off. Perhaps it is only 15. He got it to 16. Or
Anyway, since 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, one way or the other, I think you've got 6 marks to start off with.
Thank you very much, Gordon. A question now, much briefer, for Irene and Eric. If we combine Sir Thomas and Hannah with Gotthold and Doris, why is the answer Buckminster Fuller?
Briefer it may be, more unlikely it certainly is. If we combine Sir Thomas and Hannah with Gotthold and Doris, why is the answer Buckminster Fuller?
So what's so funny?
The various Sir Thomases, like Sir Thomas Beecham, but there's only one Hannah that leaps to my mind, because just yesterday I was in a bookshop where I bought a beautiful set of the works of Hannah More in a tiny glass case, with no evidence that they had ever been taken out. Well, this is what happens to the works of Hannah More quite often. They turn up in very good condition indeed.
I could not love thee, dear, so much loved I not Hannah More.
That's the lady.
I'm sure that's copyright, Irene.
It's going to be from now on.
But what about Gotthold and Doris?
Yeah, who
You
got
sound
hold
like
of
a
Doris?
great-
I
who
can
got
think of
them?
I can think of a lot of Dorises. There's Doris Day. A lot of people got hold of her in films.
There's a kind of marine snail called
That
the
is again.
Doris, or Archie Doris, but,
Lessing, Doris Lessing.
and Gotthold Lessing?
Lessing is what you want.
What's this Buckminster Fuller got to do with it? He was an architect, wasn't he? Of a sort.
Well, he is a kind of universal genius if you are
Oh, one of those.
a Fullerite, and not if you aren't. But he started as an architect before redesigning the entire planet in a book called Spaceship Earth. And I mean, he invented the notion of Spaceship Earth, and a lot of, he wanted everything to be shaped like beehives and geodesic, and all those domes are Buckminster Fuller. But he didn't say more is less or small is beautiful. That was somebody else, although he approved.
I thought you were
More
teetering
and-
on the edge of what
Well,
he
I
said
am
there.
teetering on the edge of some Buckminster Fuller shape.
You've got to
but,
combine the Moors
more
with
and
the
less.
Lessings. Oh, more or less.
He talked about Lessing.
It's much simpler than you
Figuring
seem
and-
to be making it.
Oh. I give up.
More from less from more,
More or less.
more to less.
I hesitated to intervene because I
we've
thought
given
you
them
were
a
there
lot of
already.
information,
Because you
but
said with. And what we have given you here, surely, is Sir Thomas More and Hannah More, accompanied by Gotthold and Doris Lessing, accompanied by, can be translated, shall we say, as with. More with Lessing, which is the idea behind, shall we call him Bucky Fuller?
Is
No
it?
palindromes, remember. And the idea is that you use less in terms of energy or resources or whatever and achieve more, quite simply.
Well, this program is nothing if not educational. And let it be a lesson to me, I always say.
The phrase less is more, it's not Bucky Fuller, it's Miss Van der Rohe.
Ooh, can we have a mark back for that?
But on the other hand, Bucking Fuller no doubt used, or he used so many words, he lectured very often for 7 or 10 hours at a time, and people flocked to listen to them, so it may well be he used it as well. But the less is more phrase is definitely Mies van der Rohe.
It isn't less is more.
It's more...
More
is,
with less.
It
More
is
with
more,
less.
more with lessing is the phrase.
That may well be him.
I think in terms of attributions, we could debate this all night. But what I'm not going to debate is the fact I'm taking a mark off from you because you were so slow. So you're going to have 5 marks for that.
Okay, let's go on to another question for the North of England team. Why, just after Christmas passed, might you have expected to meet the founder of St Bartholomew's Hospital? A suite of fruit and cream or a French bishop?
Why, Gordon wants to know, just after Christmas passed, might you have expected to meet the founder of St Bartholomew's Hospital, a suite of fruit and cream, or a French bishop?
I was just wondering whether this anything to do with the ecclesiastical calendar.
Yes.
I mean, you've got Thomas of Canterbury, for example, comes very soon after Christmas. Did he found Bartholomew's Hospital?
He doesn't come quite as soon after Christmas as these particular festivals.
He comes on the 29th. Stephen.
Yes, well, he
Feast of
comes
Stephen.
3 days
What about
before.
that?
Well, yes.
Of good King Wenceslas fame.
Stephen and...
He didn't have a suite of fruit and cream. It would have frozen, wouldn't it?
Well, they're very nice too, I would have thought, but there you are. Stephen and then...
anything
Stephen
to
and then John.
Anything to get
John,
stoned
John.
on, surely.
Yes, and then...
Anything to get stoned on.
Well, we've got Stephen.
Right.
Now,
A day after Stephen,
the day after Stephen is John.
day after John.
Innocents.
Right. Now, what happened, or used to happen, on those 3 feasts in the Middle Ages?
Well, there would be all manner of Johnification, like a rather squalid Saturnalia.
Yes, what was it called?
Was this when they used to make a boy bishop? The feast of the Feast of Fools or something of that?
It's the Feast of Fools.
Yes.
Right.
Be right. Now,
Now, why would the Feast of Fools be a good place to meet the founder of Bart's?
yes, because he was some historical character who was supposed to have been a fool himself.
He was...
He was
Indeed?
Rahir. He was
Rahir.
Rahir. That's right. Rahir.
That's the
he was the
lad.
jester of Henry II, was he?
Henry the First.
Henry the
Let's
First,
not
sorry,
quibble
whatever.
about kings.
That's right. Rahir. Oh, yes. And
Now, what about this fruit and cream?
Well, that's
This
a
would be
fool.
a
That's a fool.
Yes.
That's a fool.
Very good. Gooseberry or whatever kind of other fool you go to have.
Yes, that's right.
Now, what about this
The
bishop?
French bishop.
all
Yeah.
French bishops are fools. That's the
I will pass that on to the appropriate
Feast of
quarters.
Is there a French word for a fool which would sound like the name?
Oh,
of a
I know,
French bishop?
a fool.
You've got-
It's the word they have for a bishop on a chessboard. They call it a fool.
Absolutely right.
Right.
The French chess bishop, for reasons that totally escape me, which may not escape you, PJ,
But I told you they were all fools. This is why you didn't
is a fool. So,
Not just French ones either.
Rahir, Henry I court fool, Gooseberry fool, and the diagonally moving French foolish bishop, the fool, might conceivably have gathered together at the Feast of Fools on the 3 days after Christmas in the Middle Ages. Kind of, I'm told, of a medieval clerical bacchanalia, but I don't know really what went on.
I can't believe
6 marks anyway.
I will. Well,
Thank
I'm
you very
glad I
much for
helped
the
you.
6. I thought they were quite brisk there, Gordon. Now, for London, a military and slightly geographical question. A town in Haute-Vienne shares a sad professional distinction with a town in the Cape. Civilians might think a town in Warwickshire more appropriate for them. Why is this?
Louis would have you tell him why all this might be true. A town in Haute-Vienne shares a sad professional distinction with a town in the Cape. Civilians might think a town in Warwickshire more appropriate for them, he says.
When you say the Cape, Louis, you mean the Cape of Good Hope?
I do indeed, yes.
And where is Haute-Vienne? Must be France, isn't it?
It's a little to the north, or possibly it's a little above Bavienne. Is the sad professional distinction one of professional incompetence?
Yes, distinction in the sense you're singled out rather than you're a distinguished chap.
There was a place during the Boer War, there was a posting to Stellenbosch in the Cape,
When they wanted
which
to
you
get
got
rid
if
of you.
that's right. There's a
That
wonderful
will
poem
do
of
me for the town in the
Kipling's
Cape, yes.
that says we're sick of being sugared about by the old men who hamper and hinder and scold men on the way to Stellenbosch.
Yes, I like your euphemism. It works very well.
So the
Well,
one,
that was not mine, but Kipling's euphemism. Is Coventry where I'd be about
Yeah,
to be sent
probably,
for going
yes.
on like this?
Yes, as a civilian, I think that would be appropriate, yes?
Yes. But where's the town in Haute-Vienne where Napoleon sent bad generals to, for example?
No, I don't think it was
no.
Napoleon who did it. It's a wee bit more recent than that.
Oh, somebody like Foch or Pétain. One of those
Or
boys.
chaps of that ilk,
Chaps,
yes?
yes. So.
It isn't Colombe les deux
Oh.
églises, presumably, where de Gaulle spent his exile.
That's much nearer the front, is Colombele.
yeah,
This is a long way from the front, like Stellenbosch, you know. That is the idea.
A Limoges.
Ah,
You
thank
got
very much.
Limoges, yes.
Yes. You've got Stellenbosch or Limoges, or in England,
Oh,
sent
never
to
knew
Coventry
that, yeah.
if you were wearing, not wearing uniform. Yes, if we are interested in exactly why it is Limoges, it's Joffre. It wasn't Foch, but Joffre had the habit of sending the generals he didn't like or he thought were incompetent as far from the front as you could get, and so Limoges was used for this. I reckon you were nudged into that, frankly. 5, I reckon.
Okay, Goff, anything you say. Here's a question for the North. A geological entity, a biological category, and a Paris museum. At their very core, a dissonance offers you a debt. How is this?
How Gordon wants to know this very interesting and well-phrased question. A geological entity, a biological category, and a Paris museum. At their very core, a dissonance offers you a debt. How is this?
That seems to me, PJ, very difficult indeed. The only Paris museum I know to start in the middle, as opposed to starting at the beginning or the end, is the Louvre. Do you know any more? Are we on the right track if we start with the Louvre?
No.
No, we're not.
I
So we have to
put
start
the
something
Louvre
else.
right out of your mind. yes.
Right away. Okay.
That
let's-
would give you an architectural category, wouldn't it?
It would, wouldn't it? Yes, I see, rather than a geological one. So let's go back to geological entities. Species, things of that sort. That would be biological.
That would be biological.
Rather than geological.
I mean, but it's a biological identicality.
Identicality. It's a very interesting word.
It is, I just made it up.
Not surprised. Unlikely to survive. And at their core, a dissonance, which is a discord.
Well,
Is it to do with the pronunciation of words?
yes, you could say that.
Dissonance offers you a debt.
Mind you, I think that, having said that biological identicality is a neologism, it's still quite a useful clue. What things in biological terms are identical?
Twins.
No, not necessarily.
Identical twins.
No, they're not. The clones.
Right.
No,
Clone
clones.
is a jolly good word to hold on to.
Yes, it is. We've started something like that.
Oh, clones.
Um,
Well, alone it would be a...
No, just go to the middle to change it. At the very core.
if we went to
Oh,
clones,
is it IOU?
It is, yes.
Yeah, and then so it'll be,
Now find me the answer.
Oh, and geological entity is a Klein. It's a syncline.
That's right,
Yes.
yes.
Klein.
That's right.
Klein and a clone.
Clone.
And, no.
Bit of a cheat on
Or
the
is
last
it,
one.
is it Cluny?
Yes, it is.
Yes, a little bit of a cheat.
Yes, just a bit, just a bit. But
Never mind.
never mind. Getting the IOU, as it were, telepathically, I think solved you. A Klein is a slope, geologically. A clone is a biological, very close similarity, if not identical. And the Paris Museum is the Musée de Cluny, and put together the dissonant vowels give you IOU, hence the debt. 6 marks.
Thank you very much for the 6, Gordon. They seem to be doing rather well in the north.
Well, actually, yes.
Let's see if London can pull up on this one. I feel I've been a bit harsh with them, perhaps, for the last 2. Eric is looking a bit disgruntled. A numerically superfluous vision. A writer who might have been the product of George Borrow's imagination, and a Scot with a gift for parody. They've all got something in common. What is it?
What have these 3 things or people got in common? A numerically superfluous vision, a writer who might have been the product of George Borrow's imagination, and a Scot with a gift for parody.
Question with a lot of scope for generosity on your marking.
There is indeed. This George Borrow, his imagination, you mean this writer has the same name as part of one of the titles of George Borrow's books, something like that.
Actually, you're quite close there, Irene.
Like Wild
yes.
Wales, Oscar Wilde, I was thinking.
Oh, that's a very interesting way. It's totally wrong, but it's really quite fascinating.
But you don't mean that sort of thing.
No, I mean something like it, though.
Oh.
If you could stick
Romney-
around with George
well,
Borrow's titles, it might help.
Romney Rye,
Lavengro.
Elmer Rice.
I would prefer to stop where you have reached.
Here we sit, some of us in Broadcasting House, Manchester, and the name Romney is mentioned. I
Romney.
can't think what's going on in this place at all.
Out with Romney is what I was about to cry.
Well, cry
though
it.
Yes. He used to go around with a dog called Rack, didn't he?
We've got Romany, but there's something distinctive about him which I wish you both remember.
That wasn't his real name.
Precisely.
Well, of course.
Precisely. He wasn't really a gypsy at all.
No, rather like that Red Indian chap, Grey Owl, or one of those.
Now, let me have something about this numerically superfluous vision,
Yes.
once you've got the point about Romany.
I was thinking 1 over the 8, but I can't.
I've got that written down here as well. But double vision, seeing too much.
He probably thought that you needed more than double vision in order to see all those yaks and yetis and things.
Oh, gracious me! Yes, the third eye man. He had that was numerically superfluous. Lobsang Rampo, whose real name is
George.
Fred or something. Yes, and I believe
No,
has been quite a long way to the east, but not actually beyond the end of the central line.
Yes, it's much more romantic than that. His name was, in fact, not Fred, it was Cyril. It was Cyril Henry Hoskin, the son of a Devonshire plumber. It's
You're
well,
kidding.
very romantic. Lobsang Rampa's third
And
eye.
he would well, I mean, most of us would prefer to be in Lhasa.
Now, if you can give me a Scot with a gift for parody, smelt out by Dr. Johnson.
The
yes.
Reverend Gill somebody or other who probably was Ossian,
Ossian.
but
Yes, I'm not going to give a mark
Gilfillan.
for something or other, really not.
Gilfillan.
Macpherson, I think we want. But
Gilfillan.
I wanted Ossian, you gave me that, so I think you're a fair way along. I didn't really want Romany's other name, but it is interesting. He is Bramwell Evans. You probably remember this, Irene. And apparently, for those who like a historical footnote, his caravan still stands, where it obviously rested never, at the back of Sainsbury's in Winslow in Cheshire. So, pilgrims invited, 5 marks.
I have a feeling that that question about the third eye was once raised on does the team think when they were asked if you had a third eye, where would you put it and what would you use it for? And Arthur Askew said it would be useful for watching the cat while you're poking the fire. However, thank you for the 5 marks. We'll go on
Vice
to
versa.
another question for the northern team. If Peter's in front, your hour would be up. If it's little, you could be framed. If it's covered, you're sportive. 4 together take you around the world.
If Peter's in front...
Wait a minute.
Sorry.
There is a crucial phrase in this question to come. What's the point?
Sorry, Gordon. If Peter's in front, Gordon wants to know, your hour would be up. If it's little, you could be framed. If it's covered, you're sportive. 4 together take you round the world. What's the point?
It sounds on the whole rather sinister, this, doesn't it? Does the phrase "your hour would be up" rather imply being executed?
Oh yes, it would very much.
It would very
Yes,
much. That would be the end of you.
That's pretty sinister.
So if Peter's in front, which must mean something to do with jails or hanging or execution of some sort, that would give us an idea about that. And that sounds rather Renaissance to me.
Oh no, it's much, unhappily, much more recent than the Renaissance.
Now, is it? Okay, well, let's look at that. Wait a minute. Okay, if it's little, you could be framed. Is that also to do with criminal?
No.
It
Having a photo.
Deliberate and misleading, that bit.
Is it a frame of a photo?
No, frame of something else. It's a frame that's used in making something else.
If we follow out this idea of execution for the time being, that and your hour would be up, and it's fairly recent. It is
Yes.
not Pierpoint, which is
Yes,
Peter.
it is. I'm afraid
that would give you
that
that.
Peter has become translated a bit.
That's what I thought.
So
actually.
he's
we're getting there. We're getting warmer. So-
Pierpoint was about his business in the 1940s and 50s.
Indeed, he only just died. He
Yes.
retired in the 40s and 50s, and he died only a year or 2 ago.
Well, that's rather nice. Look, this must be point, is the thing that runs through.
Gosh, I wonder when you get to the last bit of the question. Yes.
At last. Here,
I thought we
point.
got there.
Now, is 4 together? Is that the 4 points of the compass?
Yes.
Yes.
If it's covered, is it? Oh heavens! Something to do. I'm no good on this.
Well, I mean, you've
cover point. This.
Yes, I was going to say you dealt with this earlier on, more or less.
Cover point.
Chap's run around the boundary and is now standing in a more favourable position.
Little. It's petit point.
There you are, you see.
Petit point.
They're quite easy, these questions, when you get down to it. Pierpoint, all right, we turned him into a Frenchman, petit point and cover point, and the 4 points to the compass. No problem, 6 marks.
Yes, thank you for the 6 marks, Gordon. Let's have a look at this one, which has only got 3 points. The last question now for Irene and Eric. It's all textile. Not Iraqi oil wells, but a cloth. Not gin, but a cloth. Not one of a fluvial trio, but a cloth. What cloths are these?
Capital of the textile industry, I thought would have given us to the north of England, but there you are. Not Iraqi oil wells, but a cloth. Not gin, but a cloth. Not one of a fluvial trio, but a cloth. What cloths?
Free associating on Iraqi oil wells and the ancient period of my life when I collected stamps, there was a place called Mosul, which for some reason or other once had its own stamps, and that was full of oil wells. Mosul and muslin and mousselin.
Yes.
Am I on the right?
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Mousseline, yes. Let's
Mousseline,
have the
yes.
gender right.
Muslin,
but mousseline
yeah.
and muslin.
Gin, you say. Not gin, but a cloth. Is there something to do with Geneva or grog?
It is slightly geographical like that, Irene, actually, but it isn't Geneva.
Would you mind if I just put an oar
Please
in?
intervene.
The gin, although associated with Geneva, has other associations as well.
There's Dutch gin. If
Holland.
You think of it as gin.
Holland, yes.
Holland's is a cloth.
Holland
yes,
is a
it
coarse cloth,
Yes,
isn't it? A
yes,
linen,
yes.
thick linen.
Now,
yes.
Gordon edged you over that one,
He
I think
certainly
very
did.
generously indeed. So you've got 2 out of the 3. Can you not get me this fluvial trio?
Ooh,
Every quiz question master uses it sooner or later.
Not to
Does
mention
he?
the dog.
it's another name of a place, is it?
Oh,
it's not a
thank you
place.
very much, Gordon. I suppose it's Harris.
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 Harris is
I'm
right.
talking about the Montgomery tweed, which
I
you
see.
disparaged somehow.
So that gives me Harris tweed and Holland and muslin. Thank you very much. I think they're really, you got them all, yes, but good heavens were you nudged. 5 again.
High proportion of 5s in this London marking. If she had employed a cosmetic surgeon, things might not have turned out the way they did. And if you add one of her pseudonyms to a northern river, you come up with Twisty Water. What am I talking about? I ask myself frequently.
If she'd employed a cosmetic surgeon, Gordon asks, things mightn't have turned out the way they have, or rather he says. And if you add one of her pseudonyms to a northern river, you come up with Twisty Water. What's he talking about?
For once, I do believe that this is absolutely straightforward. I know it's twisty, but actually it's not nearly as twisty as it looks. How would it be if I kick off by saying that since PJ comes not all that far from there, that the northern river is the Tyne?
Well, that's a one way of beginning with
That's
the
good.
second half of
Unusual
the middle,
ways.
yes.
Now, why don't you take over from there?
Well, the first one, is Cleopatra. I never can remember from my life who said that if her nose had been a bit shorter, or was it longer, or perhaps both,
Shorter, I think.
the history would have been turned out differently. Either Voltaire or Pascal, some French.
Well, it wasn't
scholar.
Voltaire, I'll tell you that for free.
Pascal.
Yes.
So this is Cleopatra, who of course was called by those few French she had left towards the end of her life the Serpent of Old Nile. And so if you add serpent to the northern river Tyne in its original spelling, the spelling with the Y is rather more modern. The original spelling is Tine. You get serpentine.
With a bit of a stutter in the middle, yes. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, it's Pascal who said that if the nose of Cleopatra had been shorter, the whole face of the earth would have been changed. Antony called her the Serpent of Old Nile, so we're told by Shakespeare. And serpent plus Tyne more or less equals serpentine. Thank you very much indeed. 6 marks. And that being said, that leaves the score at the end of this first round between London and the north of England, with London having got 26 marks, and the north of England a whitewash, a full 30 marks out of the questions they answered. And that's all we have time for. Next week, the All-Ireland team, a new venture for Round Britain Quiz, a combination of Ulster and the Republic, meets the London team. But in the meantime, from Patrick and PJ and Eric and Irene, Louis Allen and myself, goodbye.
Round Britain Quiz is produced in Manchester by Alistair Wilson.